Hello, everybody. Now, some of you may know me as an Oscar blogger. In fact, if you know me, that's probably the only way that you know me. But in recent years, I have become more and more of a gamer. I believe that video games are just as much an art form as movies are. Video games deserve to be treated with respect. Video games can be powerful, even emotional experiences. And we should honor and celebrate them. And so tomorrow are the BAFTA Game Awards. And these Game Awards are a big deal. I've played a number of the games this year, and there are some really incredible ones. This is a great year for gaming, and there were some really, really emotional games this year. Um, so I'm going to predict who I think the winners are going to be for the ceremony tomorrow, and we can see if I'm right. But a couple things to keep in mind: I have not played anywhere near the amount of video games this year compared to the amount of movies I saw this year. So, like, I have not played many of these games. I do not own a Nintendo Switch. So I have not played Breath of the Wild or Super Mario Odyssey or any other Nintendo game out this year. And there are quite a few other games that I have not played because playing a video game is a much bigger time commitment than seeing a movie. You have to really put a lot of energy into it. So, now we're going to read these categories in alphabetical order based on the way that BAFTA site lists them, and we're going to save best game for the end. Okay, so the nominees for Best Artistic Achievement: Cuphead, Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice, Horizon Zero Dawn, Gorogoa, The Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild, Uncharted: The Lost Legacy. So there are 6 nominees in each category. They're consistent about that. And I'm probably not gonna read out all the nominees for each category. So this is a really, really strong category. I have played, so I've played 4 of these technically, but I've seen a lot of footage of the 2 I haven't played, which are Zelda and Cuphead. All 6 of these games look amazing in their own way. And some of them are more about looking photorealistic, and some of them are more stylized. It's hard to judge in this category because you're literally comparing apples to oranges. How do you compare something fantastical with drawings like Gorogoa to something photorealistic like Uncharted? What I've noticed in the past is that usually they'll give this to a film. Sometimes they go with the sometimes they'll go with a game that looks realistic and beautiful graphics and all that. But typically what they go for in this category is a game with the most unique art style. And with that in mind, we have an obvious winner in this category, and that is Cuphead. The makers of that game, they worked for years. They worked for years to try and make that game's graphics look the way that they did, which is it resembles an old cartoon from the 1940s, and it's a very specific style of animation that they've recreated, and it's very faithful to that style. A lot of animators have praised it. I think Cuphead sort of has to be a winner. The other 5 games in this category, they all look amazing in their own way. I think if Cuphead was not nominated, then it would be a free-for-all with the remaining 5 games. But Cuphead, I don't see how any other game could possibly beat Cuphead at this point in this category. I don't think any other game is really as much of an artistic achievement. Even though Cuphead does not look as realistic as something like Hellblade, it's all in the style, and it's a very unique style. It's a style that people are going to be able to pick out. It stands apart from the rest of the nominees. Yeah, I think Cuphead is your winner, but the nominees are ranked in the order in which I think they will win. Next category is Best Audio Achievement. So audio achievement is a little bit tricky to figure out because a lot of these games are just gunfire or rocket ships or big sounds. And that's not to say that there's not a lot of work put into it, but with some of these games, like the sound design can get bogged down. And look out for Horizon Zero Dawn, because that game does have like vocalizations of various prehistoric robotic creatures. And it's very well done in that regard, and the sound design in that game as a whole is very, very good. But I think I'm gonna have to give this to Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice, because that game, the game developers really tried hard to capture the feeling of someone with schizophrenia. They want in that game, the protagonist Senua has schizophrenia. It's during Viking times when you couldn't really diagnose that, and she believes that she is under some curse and has to get it lifted. That's basically the gist of the game. She's also trying to hopefully bring her dead boyfriend back to life. It's a good game. It got nominated for 9 BAFTAs. I'll talk more about it later. But one of the aspects of schizophrenia, of course, is hearing voices. And they studied what it's like to hear voices, and they made that the faint whisper and the way that the voices weave in and out. It's a very effective experience, especially if you play with headphones. So I think Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice is going to win because people are going to remember the voices, but Horizon Zero Dawn could still win. Okay, next up, Best British Game. So look at these nominees, and I think we have a very obvious winner in this one. Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice is the only one of these 6 nominees that are also nominated for Game of the Year. And nothing against the other 5 nominees in this category. I heard some very good stuff about the Sexy Brutale, but this is not a difficult category. One of the nominees is a Best Game of the Year nominee, and is also the most nominated Game of the Year. Like, Hellblade has 9 nominations, so I feel that they're gonna give this award to Hellblade, and I would be shocked if anything other than Hellblade wins this award for Best British Game. Fourth category is Best Debut Game. So I read that wrong. So now this is interesting because we don't have any. None of these games are nominated in the Best Game of the Year category, and this is where I'm getting a little bit of wish fulfillment in, because theoretically they could give it to Cuphead, or they could give it to Hollow Knight, but I said Night in the Woods because Night in the Woods is my personal best game of the year, and I want it to win something, and this seems like the most obvious place that it can win. I think it's an amazing game. It's an emotional game. It really affected me in an emotional place. Yeah, it's my favorite game of the year, and I want it to win something, and it's a debut game, so not that these other games aren't worthy, but I feel that I want Night in the Woods to win, and I'm going to predict it. I mean, Cuphead could win, but that's also going to win Best Artistic Achievement. We're fairly confident in that. And the thing is, with these awards, they try to spread the wealth, I think. They don't try to give games too many awards. They like to keep it very divided. That sounds bad, but it's like, you get this award, you get this award, like they're handing it out very evenly and very fairly. So I think Night in the Woods is going to win, and I really hope it wins. Okay, Best Evolving Game. So this award is for a game that didn't come out this year. It came out in a previous year, but it's continuing to evolve. Like, they're adding updates and patches to it, and the game is still going strong and people are still playing it. I have not played any of these games. I'm going to be very frank with you. I've not played any of these games, and I am going to say Fortnite, because that game, I see a lot of people online talking about it. That's my justification. I don't play these. You'll see the same situation when you get to Best Multiplayer. I just don't play these kind of games. But my prediction is Fortnite. It could be Overwatch. I don't know. My prediction is Fortnite. I'm sticking with that. Next category is Best Family Game. And like Best British Game, this is a really easy category. You just pick the one nominee that is also nominated for Game of the Year. In that case, it's Super Mario Odyssey. I feel that they've got to give this to Super Mario Odyssey. How can they not give it to Super Mario Odyssey? It's a Best Game of the Year nomination. None of these other games come even close. Like, I struggled to find a number 2 here, and I ultimately gave it to Monument Valley 2, but any of these could be number 2. It really doesn't matter how you order 2 through 6, because Mario Odyssey is so far ahead of them. It's going to walk away with this award clean. Maybe if Zelda Breath of the Wild was also in this category, and that might be tricky, but they said, no, this is best family game, which sort of, I guess, to them equals best kids game, and Mario Odyssey is Mario Odyssey is a best game of the year nominee, so I don't see how Mario Odyssey could possibly lose this category. Next category is games beyond entertainment. I was looking for the right name for that. So what this category means, they're looking at games that had an emotional impact on the people that played them and are not just meant to be entertainment, they're meant to be emotional, and they're meant to make you more aware of the problems in life. And honestly, this is a really, really tight category. When I first saw this lineup, I was like, Sea Hero Quest VR, what is that doing here among all these other games? But then I looked it up and I realized that that game is essentially testing the people who play it for early signs of dementia, which is weird and a little bit creepy, but I'm going to look past that. Any of these could win, really. I would be a little surprised if Life is Strange won, because that's a prequel to a much more beloved game, and this is its only nomination. When in doubt, go with the one nominee that is also a Game of the Year nominee. So I said Hellblade. But I could have just as easily said Bury Me My Love. That is a game, it's a mobile game where you play a Syrian man who is texting his wife as she attempts to flee the country. So, yeah, Last Day of June or Night in the Woods could take it, or maybe Sea Hero Quest VR. They'll be like, we like the creepy dementia thing you're doing. Any of these could win, but I think Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice is the most likely winner of these nominees. Next category is Best Game Design. Now, it's kind of hard to figure out what game design, how that really counts. 4 of these nominees are Game of the Year nominees. It's a little surprising Hellblade didn't make it, considering how many other nominations it got, but whatever. Now, this award, Super Mario Odyssey is going to pick up some votes, definitely, but to me, it comes between Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild and Horizon Zero Dawn. And honestly, I think they're going to give this to Breath of the Wild, because there was a lot of talk about that game, how it was a game where you could do anything. It was a real freeing open world game that was really, really fun. And I have not played it, but people say you can spend hundreds of hours just taking everything in, and that there's so much fun stuff to do. Now, I have played Horizon Zero Dawn, and I love that game. But, yeah, I can't... It's tricky for me, and I think they're going to give this to Breath of the Wild. It's a little bit hard for me to judge. But I think in terms of game design, of all the stuff you can do, people are going to look at Horizon and say it's standard, and they're going to say Breath of the Wild is innovative. Which leads us to our next category, Best Game Innovation, I believe is the name of it. Yeah, that's the name of the category. And this one, I think, is hands down going to go to Breath of the Wild. The other games in this category are worthy, but I feel that Breath of the Wild, again, that's a game where you can do anything, and it's huge, and it's massive, and you can spend hours in it. Yeah, I feel that Breath of the Wild, people are going to be talking about that a lot more. And Hellblade, I mean, it's impressive because of the whole capturing the feeling of schizophrenia thing, but I think that's more likely to give it the win in the Game Beyond Entertainment category. I forgot the name of it for a second. So yeah, I think Breath of the Wild is going to win it because that's the bigger deal of a game. And it just feels more innovative because it's bigger and it's challenging the norm of what video games have done prior to it. Our next category is Best Mobile Game. Now, to me, it feels like the winner has to be Gorogoa because that game has 5 nominations. Now, I played Gorogoa. There's not a whole lot to it, in my opinion. It's basically just a puzzle game that forces you to think non-laterally. And it has some cool visuals. It doesn't have a whole lot to it. Seriously, watch out for Bury Me My Love in this category. That might hit home for a lot of people. But outside of that, I just don't know. Like, Monument Valley 2 has a lot of praise and it has like 3 nominations, but some people might be like, oh, we saw that before with the first Monument Valley. Yeah, I feel like Gorogoa is the way to go here because that got quite a lot of nominations, and I think people are gonna. But it got the same number of nominations as Breath of the Wild, which is insane if you think about it. So, yeah, Gorogoa is my vote. Next category is Best Multiplayer. Okay, so here's the thing. I have not played any of these games because I have no friends, okay? I don't have anybody I can play multiplayer with. So, yeah, I'm gonna go with Fortnite again because people on the internet talk about it a lot. That is my justification. I don't know, any of these could win, I guess. This is just the order I thought to put them in, and I'm gonna go with Fortnite because I'm aware that that game is very, very popular online. Yeah, that's my justification. Okay, this next category is Best Music. Now, this is a great year. I already said this is a great year for games, but for game music in particular, like, wow. Like, the 1 through 5 in this category could all win. Not joking. And even 6, like, Get Even seems like a weird nominee because it's a game that I think just came and went and it didn't get any other nominations. But I listened to the soundtrack and I'm like, oh, I get why this was nominated. So I don't think it's going to win because lack of exposure outside of the soundtrack. But 1 through 5 could all pose a legitimate threat. Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice has great music, even if a lot of it is used music, like in Celtic music. Cuphead recreates that style, that jazz, the Roaring Twenties and all that. Breath of the Wild is big. I think this is going to come down to What Remains of Edith Finch versus Horizon Zero Dawn. And both those games have beautiful, beautiful soundtracks. Like, a week ago, I was convinced that Horizon Zero Dawn was going to win. And then I played What Remains of Edith Finch. And so sorry I'm coughing today. But I'm going to go with Edith Finch again because every time you pause What Remains of Edith Finch, you get that beautiful, beautiful piano melody, and it really sticks in your head. And that's an emotional game, so the music plays more of a big part. I love the music in Horizon Zero Dawn. It is also very, very effective and powerful, and it feels epic. It feels like something out of Lord of the Rings or Game of Thrones or one of those big epics. And it can also be very emotional when it needs to. But What Remains of Edith Finch is all emotion. And music had to do a lot of different things because of the various different flashbacks and stories in that game. So it's close. And I kind of secretly want Horizon Zero Dawn to win, but I'm going to play it safe with What Remains of Edith Finch is going to win this category. Next category is Best Narrative, and this one, quite frankly, is a no-brainer. What Remains of Edith Finch is by far and away the frontrunner in this category. I highly doubt any of the others can win. Wolfenstein, I don't know, Tacoma, which I first read as Taco Man, and I had a good laugh over that. Horizon Zero Dawn, to be perfectly honest, I was not a huge fan of the narrative in Horizon Zero Dawn. It's not a bad narrative at all, it's very clear that that game, the narrative was not their first priority, which I'm fine with. I'm totally fine with. It's a great game, but I play a lot of other games where the narrative is a top priority, like Night in the Woods. I would love it if Night in the Woods won Best Narrative, but I think it's going to be a little bit trickier for a smaller game like that to pull something off. And I think it's going to have a better shot in other categories. Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice could win, I guess. But again, the narrative, it's more powerful than Horizon's, but it just doesn't feel like the main focus. The main focus is just the look and feel of the game and the feeling of having schizophrenia and how that is portrayed. I feel that they have to give this to What Remains of Edith Finch. Lewis's story alone. If you've played that game, you know what I mean. The entire narrative of that game is amazing, but the scene with Lewis's story, I think it's like, how can you not give this game Best Narrative? Yeah, I would be shocked if anything other than What Remains of Edith Finch won this category. Next category is, what is this one? Original property. Yeah, I wasn't sure because I'm looking at the pictures, and for some stupid reason, I forgot to label these images. But, yeah, I think Horizon Zero Dawn is going to win Best Original Property, if for no other reason that this might be that game's best shot at a win, and Horizon Zero Dawn has to win somewhere. It's crazy because that game comes up number 2 in so many categories, and I love the game, and it was nominated for 8 BAFTA awards. It's like they gotta give it something, right? And this feels like the most obvious place to give it something, because it's not competing against Zelda or Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice, which are like the big 2 top contenders. Like in Horizon Zero Dawn, like could be the beginning of a franchise, and it's a game that made a ton of stuff while being an original story. But you could very easily see Horizon Zero Dawn 2. They kind of hinted at the end. So, yes, I am all for that game getting a sequel and being the start of something else. And it seems like the best possible place they can give Horizon Zero Dawn, because Edith Finch, Cuphead, Night in the Woods, those are all getting their own awards. Like I said earlier, they like to spread the wealth a lot at this show. So, I think they gotta give this to Horizon Zero Dawn simply because that game has to win something, and this is the most obvious place to give it an award. So the next category is one of the most interesting categories at the BAFTA Awards show, and that is Best Performer. Now, so last year, this lineup of Best Performer, 6 nominees, 4 of them were male and 2 of them were female. And this year, only 1 of them is male, and the other 5 are female. It's amazing, and it's showing just how much the game industry is evolving. Now, Abu Bakr Salim, I hope I'm pronouncing that right. I don't think he's gonna win. I have not played Assassin's Creed Origins. I believe he plays the main playable character, and from like the cutscenes that I've watched, he seems good. But I think when you compare him to these performances, to this competition, I don't think he has a very good chance at winning. And then Claudia Black and Laura Bailey, to be perfectly honest, I think they just cancel each other out. That game works because of the 2 of them and their chemistry, and they're both helping each other. I don't think either of them is going to get enough votes to win, because I can totally see somebody be like, oh, Claudia Black is better, or Laura Bailey is better, or no, they're both just as good. Like, there's no clear consensus on which one is better. Though, to be fair, I imagine Claudia Black is probably going to get a little bit more votes than Laura Bailey. Laura Bailey has been very, very lucky to avoid any controversy with being a white woman who plays a black woman. But, I mean, if she were to win the award, then the controversy would be extreme. Valerie Rose Lohman, I mean, they gave it to a pure voice performance last year with Cissy Jones in Firewatch, but I highly doubt they'll give it to Valerie. I loved What Remains of Edith Finch, but Valerie did not do a great deal in the game. She's mostly just the narrator, and there's never really any moment where she gets like a big crying scene or a big scare. She doesn't emote too much. She's just a narrator, and it works perfectly well for what the game has to do. But yeah, I just don't see her winning. This award is a very tight battle between 2 women who essentially play the same character, you can argue, Melina Huergens and Ashley Birch. Now, Ashley Birch could win this. And the main reason I say that is because she's a much more established voiceover artist. I absolutely love Ashley Birch. She was nominated 2 years ago for Life is Strange and did not win. And a lot of people, including myself, feel she was robbed for Life is Strange. So BAFTA might be like, okay, we're going to give you a makeup award. We're going to give you this award for playing Aloy, and we really liked you in the game, and really liked the game, and it's a good way to reward the game, and you. I could totally see that happening. But on the same time, I think Melina Huergens just had more to do in her game than Birch did. First of all, Huergens had a full-body motion capture performance as opposed to Birch, who just did the voice. but also Huygens played a character with schizophrenia, and there was this constant battle. Birch, while she definitely had her fair share of emotional moments, I feel too much of Horizon Zero Dawn was just her being the everyman and the stone cold hero. And it works perfectly well for that game, but Huygens, like every other second, it's like, like it's real, more in your face acting. And I feel that, like, they've got to give it to Huygens. And I hope I'm pronouncing that right. They're both very good. And Huygens, what's interesting is that she was like an assistant editor at the game design studio. And she was just someone they said, oh, you look vaguely like what we want the character to be like. Let's just use you as a placeholder before we cast a real actress. And they ended up going with her. And she had never acted in anything before this. So, I mean, it's tricky. Do you go with the amateur actor who gave an amazing performance, or do you go with the more established actor who's been working her way up to this sort of thing? I could see both of them winning. I mean, both of them could possibly win. But I'm going to predict Melina Huygens. She's my prediction. The final category is, of course, Best Game. And no joke, I've been racking my brain over this decision. Now, when you try to rank these nominees, at first it's easy. Assassin's Creed Origins is 6. Like, it's like the 11th or something. It's the 11th or so game in this big franchise. And I guess it was good, I didn't play it. But, like, I don't know why this one... It would be so crazy if this one won. I think the nomination itself is kind of weird. Super Mario Odyssey, a lot of people liked it, but a lot of people also had problems with it and said it was too easy and an abundance of moons and all that. And I think any Nintendo fans here will be much more likely to vote for Zelda over Mario. What Remains of Edith Finch, it's not impossible that game could win, but I mean, I think it's like a 2 to 3 hour experience, and it's all story and no gameplay. So I feel that, plus it's gonna win narrative and it might win score. So I can't imagine it takes away Game of the Year. So 4, 5, and 6 are all really, really easy. Like, you know that they're 4, 5, and 6. But the top 3, you could rearrange the top 3 in any order you want, and it would be fine. I put Hellblade at number 3, even though it's the most nominated game of the year, and even though I believe I'm predicting it to win the most awards. I guess the fact that it's a lot shorter and a lot more linear than Breath of the Wild or Horizon Zero Dawn. It's just, it feels like something's much smaller, and it was a much cheaper game to make, which is amazing if you look at the graphics in the game. It looks so professional, but I don't know. I feel that Hellblade's going to get its due somewhere else, and I feel that they're going to want to give this award to Horizon or Zelda, because those are big, big games, and everyone's talked about them. Though there was a period of time where I sort of was predicting Hellblade to win this, and it still could. So now it comes to the internet battle that's been going on for at least a year now, Horizon Zero Dawn versus The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. Now, I think the reason I stuck with Horizon as my choice for so long is because I have not played Breath of the Wild, and I think a part of me doesn't want to admit that they're going to give Game of the Year to a game I didn't play. Especially when I went out of my way to play so many games following the BAFTA nominations. I played Night in the Woods, Hellblade Senua's Sacrifice, What Remains of Edith Finch, Gorogoa, and Bury Me My Love, all following the nominations announcement. So it just feels weird because I don't know Breath of the Wild like I know Horizon Zero Dawn. I've played Horizon Zero Dawn a lot, and I love that game. Breath of the Wild, I've seen bits of it, and I don't even know if I would get into it if I did play it. Like it looks nice enough, but I don't know. What got me is that people keep saying it's the best game of all time, or in contention to be the best game of all time. And people have grown up with the Zelda franchise, and I really haven't. like the things that people say about this game, and I sort of thought, oh, that was a year ago. Horizon Zero Dawn was also a year ago, but there's been like a DLC for it, and maybe I'm crazy because I feel that Zero Dawn has been in the thought process more than Breath of the Wild, but maybe that's just because of my thought process, because I have played Horizon Zero Dawn a lot and haven't played Breath of the Wild. And remember last year, Uncharted 4 won this category, one game of the year, and it didn't win anything else. And there was a point in time when I thought Horizon Zero Dawn could totally win Game of the Year and not win anything else. And Breath of the Wild has 5 nominations. So if you compare that to Horizon Zero Dawn, which has 8, or Hellblade, which is 9, it just seems so slight. But then again, there's no place where you really could have said it got robbed, unless maybe you count Best Audio Achievement. I don't know. I want to give this award to Horizon Zero Dawn, and I think I'm secretly rooting for Horizon Zero Dawn, and I want Horizon Zero Dawn to win. But I think with the amount of praise that everyone throws out for The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, even in the honest trailer for Horizon Zero Dawn, the narrator guy said that the game would have been a legitimate contender for Game of the Year if it didn't come out just 3 days within Zelda's release. Oops. So I think because of that, I have to say Breath of the Wild is going to win Best Game, even though I haven't played it. I don't have a Switch. And a Switch is really expensive. And I already own a lot of games, so I don't think I'm going to get a Switch. It's not like, oh my god, Zelda Breath of the Wild looks so good and I want to play it. No, I'm fine. I'm totally content with not playing it. And I love Horizon. I want to say Horizon so bad. I debated this so much. But in the end, I'm going to say that The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild is going to win Game of the Year. And I'm sure, correct me if I'm wrong. We'll see what happens. So, those are my predictions for the BAFTA Game Awards, which are tomorrow. I'm probably going to do a much shorter video following the BAFTA Game Awards, just letting you know how I did. But that's all from me. And hey, to anyone out there who's primarily a movie buff and doesn't play a lot of games, play more games. Because there were some really, really good games this year, and a lot of surprisingly emotional games this year. Some people say that video games aren't art, and I think maybe you've just been playing the wrong games. When people think of video games, they think, oh, either Mario jumping around, or of Call of Duty. And they think either they're a harmless time waster, or they're just desensitized violence for your kids. And video games can be those things, but they can also be powerful experiences. And maybe you should try gaming some more, because there's some really cool stuff nominated for Game of the Year and all that. So I had an ending, I had a segue, I lost it. Thank you so much for watching this video, and tomorrow I'll post a video saying just how much I got right. Later.